Welcome back to another episode of the MAFIA Method Health Podcast. Today we are going to discuss the difference between being health conscious and also health obsessed. The line can be fine, especially once you start to learn a lot and you become very conscious, right? So we're going to talk about that. So this is an incredibly deep topic because obviously health, as I like to, phrase it, it relates to your physical fitness, your mental wellness, and also, spiritual hygiene and your energy. So we're going to kind of touch on everything. And as usual, I'm just going to speak freely. I don't have too many notes prepared today. Where I do want to start is I watched a documentary yesterday on Heath Ledger. For those that don't know, Heath Ledger was a big Australian actress in like the 2000s. And I think he died just after the Joker was filmed. I could have sworn I went to see the Joker. So he was only 28 when he died, right? So he died in 2008, right? Now, I was 9 years old at the time. So I didn't really look into it too much. And all I kind of heard was, oh, yeah, it was drugs, right? So you just assume it was like another actor with a really troubled, you just assume it's another person from Hollywood with a really troubled cut from here. So you just kind of assume, generally speaking, that, it's a troubled star, right? That has had issues with dealing with the fame and they turn to substances and then they've committed suicide or OD'd or whatever in an apartment by themselves. The story happens so many times. Now, when you look into these things, you'll find that a lot of them are more complicated than that for various other reasons. But yeah, I was just curious about Heath Ledger. I also thought of him because there's a song I really like. Um, and it's an old school Melbourne song, and it's like a rap song with like an electronic beat, and the lyrics are like, "I'm faded and I feel like I can fly, but I think I'm getting high, but I feel like I might just have another hit. I'm on the shit that killed Heath Ledger," and like it's kind of a funny lyric, but a part of me was like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like he literally died, so like what is this? So I wanted to learn. Anyway, I've also, been more conscious as well of like the frequency of music and the lyrics in music. In like really strict versions of Islam, music is like haram. Obviously, for me, I feel like music is my gift from God, so that doesn't apply. But you need to really be conscious of like what's in music you're listening to often. And I sort of, paid attention to this with the rap, which is why I decided not to pursue the rap like full time, because I realized that a lot of my rap and a lot of rap in general is like quite aggressive and whatever. And that's the point of it. It's like a bit of a fuck you attitude. But, you know, having your head in that like constantly is not good for your psyche. And electronic is by nature a lot more elevating, especially, things like trance. So yeah, I've just been paying attention to lyrics in electronic songs, you know what I mean? And anyway, this got me onto looking into Heath Ledger. So to cut a long story short, which the long story was this hour-long documentary, basically he was just like a small town kid from Perth. I say small town because Perth isn't a big place. And so basically he was just like a really humble guy from Perth, and he just had this passion for acting, and he was really connected to the art. And I sort of resonated a lot with the story because I kind of feel like that as well. Like I've been very frustrated in music and DJing because like I really do care about the art of it, and it seems to be quite lost these days. But on the flip side, he was so successful because of that, so it gave me motivation. But it sort of hit me a little bit as well because he was saying things like, yeah, I'm happy, I'm good, I'm just so exhausted, I'm so exhausted, I'm so exhausted. And he was saying it constantly in so many interviews. And the education around sort of the effects of like actual exhaustion and fatigue are still a bit in the air. But definitely back then, the awareness around it was poor. I think people now are starting to tap into more nervous system related work, but also it's tough to say generally because, I'm thinking about what I'm seeing on the phone, and my phone's obviously the algorithms are designed to me. So I'm seeing a lot of stuff about nervous system, fascia release, and I'm seeing some really cool concepts just about physical training and stuff like that. And I'm hoping that this is some new information for you guys too, the things that I talk about like on this podcast, because I certainly have some unique methods, hence the MAFIA method. But like, there's more education, generally speaking, about mental health these days. And even if there's not education, the discussion is starting to happen and be popularized in general. And now we're even seeing it dive into the men's space, which is fucking great. Like, I've seen so many men's creators who are like the last kind of guys who you would think would like be wise or conscious that are saying these sorts of things. And it's really good. And I'm really happy to see it, and particularly in Australia, like there's been a lot more conversations this year about mental health with respects to athletes and things like that. So it's starting to happen, and like it's good. It needs to start. I'm just hoping that it doesn't just become a fad or a trend and then it goes. Like these conversations need to be open. They need to be haven't had, and like men need to not feel so emasculated by these conversations. So again, I'm really hoping that whoever finds my videos too, should you, not really resonate with all that other language and just like not want to feel like disempowered by it, I'm hoping this sort of stuff helps you. Anyway, back to Heath Ledger. So basically, he just hated being famous. I don't fucking blame him. He hated being famous, and he was so exhausted from the demands of acting. He was doing like 6 days a week on set, then all the energy that goes into the character, like it's a lot. And basically he was just suffering from nervous system burnout and complete exhaustion, and that shit will have you on your ass. But because he had to go to work and do all these things, and he had all these pressures of all these different movies and whatever else, he was taking medication. So I believe he was mixing 2 or 3 types of different pharmaceuticals. They were all prescribed, I believe. He was dealing with so much burnout that he was kind of tired and wired. So that can happen if you're super exhausted. Your mind can actually be so wired that you can't sleep. So he was an insomniac, really bad. So he was taking pills for that. Then those pills stopped working even. I believe he was also on some sort of mood elevation and antidepressant. And then I think he had painkillers for all of that as well. So he was just on a concoction of things. And the night before he passed away, he spoke to his sister back in Australia. He was in New York at the time, or America somewhere. And, she said to him, I don't know if you should mix all of these things together. He's like, I've got a meeting with Steven Spielberg tomorrow. And like, that was the last they ever heard of him. And I think in the autopsy, they found that, it was not just the combination of these drugs, but it was actually the fact that he was so exhausted and his body and immune system like couldn't do what it needed to do to metabolize these chemicals, and what they actually deemed to be his cause of death was actually more so the exhaustion rather than the concoction and the mix of the medication. Because generally speaking, they're all prescribed to him. Maybe there was advisory or not to take them together and things like that. But assuming he took the amount that was prescribed and they were all prescribed by the same practitioner, right? And he was otherwise healthy, not suffering with illness, which he had like a cough and some sort of pneumonia type thing at the time too, plus the exhaustion. Maybe he would have felt weird, but he might have been able to metabolize and digest really. But yeah, maybe he would have been able to metabolize those compounds, you know what I mean? And be okay. So it also was a big reminder for me on like how much the role of exhaustion really does have in your health. And again, this doesn't just mean like being physically exhausted. You can be emotionally and spiritually fatigued and tired, and also mentally tired. There's a thing called decision fatigue, where it's like if you've had a really busy day and you've made a lot of decisions in the day, or you've done a lot of like, computer work or just work in general, managing, whatever you do for work, right? And by the end of the day, you're so tired from all the decisions, you have decision fatigue. So then when it comes to like, what's for dinner, you're just like, I can't even think about that because you're tired from making decisions all day. Like I said in a previous episode, your body has a baseline amount of calories it needs even just to survive if you're in a coma in like hospital, right? So everything takes energy. To think takes energy, to work and be productive takes energy, and to feel emotion also takes energy. And I'm finding this out as I go deeper into my artist journey. I'll have days where I have to, and I am feeling through all my emotions so that I'm creating through them. Like that's where a lot of my art comes from, is feeling my emotions and then creating through that. And that's tiring. That's very tiring. It's it's just the way it is. You're using energy. So on those days, can I go and do a 2-hour gym session? No, absolutely not. On those days, it's more gentle movement that supports that. Anywho, so when I was like watching this documentary, I was taking it all in, and I sort of got a bit upset because I was really like seeing a little bit of myself in his story, just with the amount of like exhaustion and how he just kept going, kept going, kept going. And, I've done that several times in my life. And it sort of made me like wake up a little bit as well. But then I realized, like, hang on a minute, like I'm not taking all these other drugs. And like, really, my medication at the moment is like caffeine and then magnesium and things like that. So I'm like balancing myself out with like magnesium and caffeine, really. So I'm having like coffees and matcha and green tea, and like the magnesium comes through like the cacao, and I'm also taking magnesium tablets and whatever the fuck else. So I've like found my balance with that stuff, right? And then I've got like some herbs that I have in the sleep tea, but really that's where I'm sitting, okay? So whilst it's not as hard, yeah, as what he was taking and as dramatic, I'm still using things to assist that process within me, right? Which like I've mentioned before, it's medicine, and it's medicine that I hope not to need, because I want my life to give me life, and I want my life to just kind of flow, and I want to be tired from a day of doing what I love rather than tired because I'm not. You know what I mean? So another thing with fatigue is that it's usually a symptom of having endured or being in stress. And stress is a huge killer, and it is a silent killer. How many times have you heard that story of like, yeah, he was fit and healthy and he was fine, and then he just like dropped dead? That's stress. That's years of holding things down. That's years of suppressed emotion. That's years of not talking about any problems. That's years of not addressing problems. That's years of like going through something tough and then burying it down because you're too ashamed, or you think it's in the past, it doesn't matter. That's where that comes from. And again, personally speaking, haven't had a heart strain. Yeah. And truth be told, guys, I've uh, I've asked the channels to close off, but I do have like spiritual abilities, and there were periods of my life where I would get really intense. My grandparents would come through really intensely. When at the time of my heart strain, and when I started to use it as like a no turning back point, I really started to feel my paternal grandfather, my nonno, who I never actually met, but I had the heart strain on Melbourne Cup Day, which is like a big horse race day. And the thing on my father's side of the family is like horse racing. My grandfather had a horse. My dad used to go with him. My dad loves the horses. And my brother carried on that tradition too. So it's like a big thing on the paternal side of my family. So I had this heart strain on that day. And also, my grandfather died again in a similar circumstance like that, where he died in his sleep because his heart shut down. And I almost felt like it was the warning from him, of saying like, focus on these things on your mind because they will like destroy your heart. And he was also kind of reinforcing to me that like my health was important, and like all this work I was doing with health was really important, because for him, there wasn't this education of health in his day, and how he was like dealing with, having been to war and then migrating and being an entrepreneur in a new country, how he was dealing with that was drinking and cards with the paisani and, whatever else my nonna was doing. Okay. But there weren't things that were good for his health. But back then, everyone smoked, for example. Everyone smoked, and that was normal. So at the time, I really felt like it was his spirit. And I've always felt really connected to him. Like, I definitely feel like I have a lot of him in me, even though I've never met him. I just feel very connected to my Spania blood, and that comes from him. And I think I look like him as well. I've seen some photos of him. Like, fuck, I actually look like my nono. But anyway, yeah, I've sort of healed to the point where they don't need to come in so much anymore, and now being sort of in Allah's arms more. I think they're happy to pass me on. You know what I mean? But also, it wasn't just just to add on to that too. You know, I was so open energetically at one point in time that it wasn't just my grandparents that were coming through. I would walk into a space or be at a memorial site and feel all of this. So it's been really nice to now be kind of protected under the faith of Islam, because I'm praying for protection every day and 5 times a day. So when I'm in these spaces now, or if I feel something, I just ask it to go away or say a few things and it's like fine and it's gone. So that's been really nice, because wow, that was affecting my health a lot at one point. You know, I mentioned in the episode where I was talking about my healing journey, that, well, I don't know if I mentioned it in that episode, but I have mentioned it. But basically, when I was in that like house for like 6 7 months, was really focused on healing. I had so much spiritual activity in that house, like you will have no fucking idea. And it was the most cooked thing, and I was having sleepless nights, and I was seeing shit, and I was hearing shit, and it was like fucking insane. And it definitely contributed to my stress at the time. And I was trying to rip up all these like layers of myself, and then I was getting all this energy come through and all these random spirits, and had some crazy shit happen in that house. Two things very notable. My mate always reminds me every time we chat. We're on the phone, and I heard a noise in the kitchen. I was in the front of the house, so I walked back to the kitchen, and I had this little bicchiere, this glass. Mind you, it had a curved bottom, right? And the glass was on the edge, and it had been flipped upside down because I was drying it. It was like on my tea towel, flipped upside down, and it was on the edge like that. She always talks about it, and I was like, yeah, what the fuck? And I had another really weird thing happen in that house too. Um, I had a full length mirror, and I had it one day on the floor. It was like next to my bed, not in front of my bed, next to my bed. And it was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I woke up and it was beside me, and it was toppling over, and Toto was like running around. Now you might think Toto would have hit it. He's not strong enough to knock this mirror. Like, it was a heavy mirror, and this mirror was falling, and then it smashed on the ground next to me, and I woke up as it was like falling, and it was the most crazy shit, because as I woke up, I could feel this, like, in Harry Potter, the Dementors, they're like this big ghosty thing. I could feel this kind of energy force circling my bed, and then the mirror fell and smashed. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that was one of the craziest shit that's ever happened to me. So, point is, that period of my life was very spiritually unhealthy and unhygienic. But I didn't know how to maintain it, and I didn't know how to deal with that, you know. So sometimes, whether it's spiritual health, whether it's physical health, whether it's mental health, sometimes it's got to get messy and it's got to get ugly before it gets better, okay? And I say this, but I don't believe that every period in your life has to get to rock bottom or completely messy for you to heal and move forward. I think that once you start doing this work and you're aware of your signs, your symptoms, and you know more about health in general, but also specifically within yourself, you can catch on to things. And this is the bulk of like why I say what I say. It's so it doesn't have to get to complete and utter shit. So it doesn't have to get to the point where there's no other option but to bulldoze the whole fucking thing down. Because that process of like completely getting rid of something and burning it to the ground and then rebuilding it, like, not only is the burning and the bulldozing taxing and tiring, right? It takes more time, number one, but also it's just so much more work. And if it doesn't need to happen, if the foundations of the building are good, why knock the whole building down? You know what I mean? So yeah, I guess that's the point from, I just thought that was going to be a tangent of a story, but it actually ended up having a point. Something that I see a lot in the world around me, and I don't want to like pick and choose, but particularly amongst men, is that because there's so much pressure societally for you guys to hold everything together, even when things are on the downward slope and on the downward spiral, you won't admit that to yourself, because a part of your role, generally speaking, as a man, in whatever like system you're involved in, your family unit or whatever, like part of your role is to hold it all together, you know? So it's not only like a bit of an ego kill for you guys when things aren't going well, which for everyone it is, but not only does that like toy with your ego and make you feel shit about yourself, it actually is like in your mind's a sign of failure. And no one wants to admit failure, right? And when you fail, you feel ashamed, you want to hide away, the kid at school who gets the A+ has no dramas having his test results on the table, but the kid who gets the D, he's turning that thing upside down. He doesn't want anyone to see it. You know what I mean? So yeah, I feel as though men are less willing to accept when things aren't going well, and then they won't make change until they completely have to, until everything turns to complete and utter chaos, until everything is complete and utter mess and things are already broken and done. And you see this a lot online with people talking about like love and relationships, and people say like, oh, let her get away and it's too late now and blah, blah, blah. Like, that's often what happens. Men really do wait till it's too late, and then they just spend the rest of their lives like in misery. And a lot of that comes from the unwillingness to like drop the ego and admit issues, problems, dysfunction. So much growth and amelioration comes from the admittance of when things are not going well, when things are in dysfunction, when things are in dismay, when things are fucked. To put it simply, that admittance is a form of like surrender. It's a form of understanding that there are things going on that are like beyond your control, and or things that are actually affecting you, because it's all right to be affected by life. That's again part of the point of us being here. If you go through life and never affected by anything, are you living? Are you experiencing? Probably not. So if you want to be affected by the good things and feel the highs, the lows come with that too. But a lot of men will accept so much of the lows because they think it's just their job all the time to bear the brunt of all the shit of life, because that's what a man does. That they then live in these really low frequency states. They become closed off to themselves, their heart, the world around them. And then you see, demons come out. Overindulgence, lust, greed, violence and abuse. That's what happens to anyone who stays in that low vibe, in that low state, but just how it manifests between men and women looks different. But irrespective, if you're there long enough, you're just going to become cold and close your heart. Hello, I'm sitting here recovering from this. I'm sitting here literally learning to open my heart every day. Learning to not be so cold, learning to not be so hard, learning to not be so cutthroat. Why? It nearly sent me to cardiac arrest. Okay? And it's done a lot of other numbers on my health, which I won't go into, right? So stress kills. Fatigue is a symptom of stress. Never ignore your fatigue for too long. Okay? Example, today, I've only had 4 hours of sleep. And I've had a shot of coffee this morning and it's keeping me going, right? But I know that I'm not going to back this up. I know that I can get a little nap in today, right? And I know that otherwise there's nothing that's going to take too much of my energy today, right? I'm also doing a bit of a fast today, a liquid fast. So I know that I'll reset and whatever else. But if I had to be somewhere today for hours and hours and hours, and then I had to be that same place the next day, and then the next day, and then maybe I was going to get one day off, it's not sustainable, not healthy. And this is not good fatigue to ignore. Again, what a lot of us do. And let's use the example of Heath Ledger. I'll put the documentary there if anyone's interested. He was doing 6 days a week, pretty much. He said he was getting in the makeup chair at 3 a.m. He was getting 2 hours of sleep, if that, for months and months and months. Not good for you, right? So I can get 4 hours sleep on one night and have a fully functioning day. Maybe two. Depends what I'm doing and how happy I am and whatever the fuck else. You know, a weekend, let's say that, right? But am I going to back that up and back that up and back that up and back that up? No. I used to, though. I used to. When I had my full-time career job back in Australia, I was working very long hours. I was training before work, right? I had to at the time too because I was recovering a torn ACL. And I was also studying at university. Then on the weekend, I was doing whatever I was doing, you know. Then I got a boyfriend, I was doing whatever I was doing. And I was going to work some days on fuck all sleep. Fuck all sleep. And I did that for like months on end. And I was literally living off fucking food and caffeine just to like keep me up. But it wasn't like benefiting me really. It was just keeping me fucking baseline. So again, like with Heath Ledger, his medication stopped working. You know, the insomniac pills were not working anymore. Fuck that. It's like his body literally wasn't responding because it wasn't in good enough health. This is why I say things like even what I'm using with the caffeine, magnesium, right? It's just like little medicine. It's things on top. It shouldn't replace this. You know, it's like fucking trying to paint your nails, but you don't have fingers or hands. Do you know what I'm saying? You've got to have fucking fingers and hands to be able to paint your nails. Shit example, but does that convey my point? I feel like I can think of a better one. I don't know. Fucking more, what could I say? It's like trying to pour yourself a glass of milk and there's no fucking glass. All right? You're going to pour that milk on the fucking countertop and then you have to slurp it up. Inconvenient. You know what I mean? Before we continue with the second half of this, I want to show you guys my latest little supplement purchase, actually. So, I was looking for dry yeast because I like to make my own bread. And I couldn't find any, but I did find these. It's levadura de cerveza, which is brewer's yeast tablets. And I thought it was just like dry yeast, but in a tablet form. And then when I actually looked on it, I was like, wait, that's a supplement. So this says brewer's yeast is a natural source of group B vitamins, mainly B1, thiamine, and contributes to normal energy yielding metabolism, to the normal functioning of the nervous system and a normal psychological function, and B9 folic acid that contributes to the reduction of tiredness and fatigue, to maternal tissue growth during pregnancy and normal function of the immune system. And I was like, what the fuck? And then I bought them and I Googled a little bit about them. You take 9 a day. They're only small. I Googled them a little bit and I was like, fuck, man, I think this is actually what I need. Sometimes I find that I'll just be randomly in a shop and I'll see a supplement and I'm really drawn to it. I'm like, I think I might need that. I've also known that I've got this like B vitamin. I think it might be B12. I should learn about it. I found out this thing about if you've got Greek toe, so your second toe longer than your first toe, you have an issue in the absorption of like, I forget exactly what it was, but you have an issue with some sort of absorption of one of the B vitamins. I think it's like B6 to B12 or something. I'm not saying it right. Again, I'll put another resource if you're interested in fucking learning about that. But I've like theorized that I deal with like a bit of B12 deficiency. Also, you only get B12 from meat. Yeah, you take them before you eat. And honestly, I'm actually noticing pretty good effects. And I do think it's potentially even the reason why I've had fuck all sleep and I'm still like in somewhat a good mood. I'm also using saffron. Saffron literally is an antidepressant, supposedly. So I've been using it in like my coffees, my cacao, and anything where I'm not going to burn it too much. But yeah, crazy shit. But this is also Mediterranean food, in paella. What makes it that color? Generally saffron. So like in a lot of Mediterranean food, there'll be these herbs and spices in there that are already providing those effects. You know what I mean? Which is why like there's fuck all things to do in Spain to bake, because a lot of the food's made with this stuff. So they don't need to fucking cook. They just buy stuff. It's getting a bit worse now because they don't check the ingredients and they still think it's the quality that it was. But anyway, that's another fucking topic. But in not finding my yeast so I can make my bread, I've found these tablets which are helping me. Salud. And this is my water. It's just and my water's just a quick chia water with some lime and some mint. So again, just helping me hydrate. It's getting quite hot here and I am fasting today, so I like to get in my liquids. Now, what I was going to talk about. Circle me back, boss. So where do you draw the line being health conscious or health obsessed? Fuck, I wanted to pull the mic, but the cord's not long enough. I broke the other one. Well, I have to talk about a personal story. That's always the easiest. Recently, I had to check myself with this physically, mentally, and spiritually. So I'm going to talk about all three. Fuck it. So the physical one, I think I mentioned in passing. Actually, I don't think I uploaded that episode. Let's talk about the physical one. I noticed recently, in the past, when I say recently, I mean in the past like 3 months, I learned about this thing called orthorexia. Because I was pretty lean, like March, April, pretty fucking lean. I was eating and running and shit, but I was kind of like, I normally don't sit this lean, So I felt good, I looked good, but I was like, I'm looking a bit skinny for me. I sort of started to notice as well that I was losing a bit of size on areas where I still fat. Let's just say that. And for me, that doesn't happen. Like if I'm just maintaining myself, generally speaking, I might lean up around my waist, but I'm not losing fat in the main areas where I still fat. Okay. And I started to notice that and I was like, that's probably a bit not on. I was still having my bleeds and everything was normal on that front, but I was a little more fatigued, right? But I was like, I'm eating heaps. Like, I don't get it. What I started to notice I was doing is like being far too obsessed with like what I was eating. Didn't even want to go out and buy, a fucking donut or anything like that, like once in a while. Would walk past a fast food shop and just be like, absolutely fucking not, even if I was starving and I had like run all day or done something. And not saying that's a bad thing, but in the excess that I was doing it to the point where I was restricting potential enjoyment because I was having little cravings like a fucking little baba or a little donut or a little cannoli is not going to fucking kill me. And it's shit I enjoy, which I've spoken about, being Italian and blah, blah, blah. So I was actually like not even enjoying my little Italian pastries here and there or any of my other shit that I like to eat. Because I was just like so obsessed with everything being like so clean. So when I realized like, hang on a minute, I'm not even having my like Italian sweets every now and then, or I'm going to eat and I'm like not ordering a piece of cake after I eat because I'm like, I don't want anything sweet. I didn't even have sugar in the house for ages. No sugar. I was making cakes, which were actually pretty nice because I was using like the sugar of the fruit, but I like had no sugar. I was like, no. And every time I go to the shop, I was like, no, not buying sugar. And so slowly, I just started to like do things that were just like too far. And how I picked up on it was I actually saw a content. Wow, bro. How I picked up on it, I saw a content. That's so ethnic. I saw a fucking content, brother. How I picked up on it was I saw a video and this woman was talking about orthorexia. I was like, what the fuck? And then I looked into it, I'm like, fuck, I think I'm actually developing that. So what did I do? I noticed I was developing that and I went and got a fucking pastry the next day. And I was like, I enjoyed it without guilt, and that's it. And that's it. And then I was like, you know what? Once a week or however often, I'm gonna allow myself to this, allow myself to that. Had a little bit of fast food. I had a pizza, you know, and I kind of got it out of my system. And then I was like, I'm not scared of this food anymore. Great. So that was a bit of like a mental / physical health thing that I started to realize was happening. Now, another thing in moving from being healing to healed, right? You are very much toying with your mental health because you are so used to healing, right? I've been healing for the past 2 years, which means if I feel shit emotions, I've been looking at myself the whole time and I've been saying, all right, I need to sit in this. I need to get it out. Now it's actually not a matter of sitting in it and getting out. There's nothing more to get out. Any remnants of like shitty emotions and like tough feelings I have quite literally is just a body fucking removal. Like I'm doing, you know, this fascia release and this somatic work and I will cry. Cry. Do I know what I'm crying about? Absolutely not. Do I know I feel better after I cry? Fucking oath. So I put that down to it being a physical thing and like my trauma is getting released from the tissue. But like I've done all the work up here, believe me. Moving away from that mindset of like, I've got to sit in this, I've got to purge it, I've got to like see what's going on in my mind, into actually like, this isn't like a me thing anymore. I've like processed all that shit and I've got to trust in the work I've done. It's literally just my body like releasing. That fucks with my head a little bit. Straight out, fucks with my head. Because even in those moments where I'm releasing it, you still feel the emotion at that depth. I'll still feel the depression at the worst that it's been in my life. But then it will pass like that because it's just clearing from my system. So when I was watching this Heath Ledger thing, it triggered me a little bit too because I was like, fuck, man. Is this what am I fucking... I was like, shit, I haven't been sleeping that much because I sleep broken because I wake up to pray because the first prayer is before sunrise. And it's better if you can pray like at the start of the prayer time. So that's like, it's like 4 a.m. So if I go to sleep at like midnight, which I do, so I'll sleep like, my sleep's broken now, which is, it's actually not a big deal. But like my sleep's broken, but some days I only have a short sleep. So like I've been like, fuck, I'm not sleeping as much. Shit, am I like developing insomnia? Fuck. And I like quickly looked at like what insomnia was. This one guy said, oh, it's like a rule of 3. It's like, oh, if you're getting less than this and this. And I was like, fuck, I think this might be happening. Shit. And then I was like, hang on a minute. No, like it's not, you know, I am working towards something, number one. I have a lot of peace and comfort right now. So I'm not like pushing myself. You know, I've reduced my training a lot. Like it's fine. I'm not there. Also, I'm not taking like 3,000 fucking pharmaceuticals. Relax. But like the thought got implanted into my mind because I'm so used to looking at myself and like taking everything as a fucking sign. We'll go into the spiritual shit too. So I had to understand, you know, you don't have to relate to everything in the fucking film that you're seeing and not everything's like for you. Right? But you can take some from it and you can feel some relation to it. You know, it's just like a story, right? So that was an example of how I had to like mentally check myself and be like, okay, no, I'm not dealing with this. Let's not fucking self-diagnose here. I'm not dealing with this. It's not disrupting my life. I'm not taking a bunch of medication. I'm otherwise healthy. Like there's other things in my life that are affecting me. I'm addressing them, whatever the fuck else. No, this isn't mine to like take on. And again, this happens a lot with how much certain things are being spoke about with respects to like mental health and mental illness online. Let's talk about one thing. Let's go there. Autism. When I was growing up, autism meant a very different thing to what it means now. Neurodivergent meant a very different thing to what it means now. Now, the word neurodivergent, let's actually search the definition. Definition of neurodivergent. So this says, neurodivergent means your brain processes information, learns and behaves differently from what is considered typical by societal norms. So that means societal norms in each society or each culture, it's different. And I've learnt this as well since moving, right? Now, what they've actually done is they've actually put PTSD and CPTSD under the neurodivergent umbrella. So technically speaking, I'm recovering from CPTSD. Technically speaking, I'm neurodivergent. But when I was a kid and you would hear that word, which you wouldn't hear it, you would normally just hear autism, it meant you were autistic. I'm not autistic, right? But I'm under this umbrella. But a lot of people will be under this umbrella if you want to look at it. Look how many things are on this umbrella. ADHD, ASPD, don't know what that is, BPD, NPD, narcissistic personality disorder, dyslexia is a type of neurodivergence. Sensory, you know what? This is really interesting. What are all these? Society is neurodiverse. Yeah, there you go. Here, neurodivergent is a socio-political term. Neurodivergent is not a medical or a clinical term. There you go. Neurodivergent is a term that includes any person who diverges from neuronormativity, including those with mental illness. So there you go. It's people with mental illness and or just an abnormality. So it's not a clinical thing. Neurodivergent is not synonymous with neurodevelopmental. Neurodivergent is not another diagnosis. Neurodivergent is simply a term that names a marginalized social position. Neurodivergent is not about biological differences in the brain. Well, it wouldn't be biological. It would be, maybe it's not biological in like the structure, but it would definitely be a neurotransmitter and a pathway fucking difference for sure. Like quite literally having PTSD or CPTSD, certain things trigger you and certain things fire certain responses. So maybe it's not a biological difference, but definitely be chemical. Neurodivergent is a term of resistance against the idea that it's cut off. Whatever. So, oh God. Sorry. I've just seen your typical fucking, your typical gatsies here. But basically, yeah. So neurodivergent technically ranges from people with schizophrenia to something like what I've got, CPTSD. Right? So it's a very broad term. This is a big umbrella. Yeah, those big golf umbrellas? This is what that is. But when I was growing up, neurodivergent just basically meant you were autistic. Right? Now, you've got every Tom, Dick, and Harry saying they have autism. And especially a lot of women saying, oh yeah, I'm autistic. Honey, we're just women. We experience and we feel things differently. Okay? You might be autistic, okay, but it's a different thing. Also, I feel like if you're autistic, that's early shit. I know there can be late diagnoses, but like I feel like autism is so hard to hide. Even if you're like lower level, I feel like it's obvious. I don't know. So there's a Venn diagram. Let's learn. Let's not be so fucking. So there's ADHD or DHD and autism. So they're like together. What's ADHD? So it seems to be like autism and ADHD mixed. Yeah. Right. So it's such a spectrum, isn't it? It actually really is, because I've met so many autistic people that like are very obviously autistic because they do have this like hyper sensitivity, right? And they're like fucking really up and about. But I've also met autistic people that are so like really only autistic, routine driven, focused on special interests. That's such an autistic thing. They're like really obsessed with like one thing. Social communication difference is also a massive trait of autism. And actually really autistic people are usually very academic. But this ADHD, which seems to be a mix of autism and ADHD, they're typically the ones that really struggle at school, like really struggle. And they'll be in like the special classes and things like that because they just can't. And then you've got ADHD here on it as well. And generally speaking, the ADHD kid, I'm just thinking about how I grew up, guys. The ADHD kid, he's more likable, he's more social, but he's just fucking flying off the walls. So I feel like people are overdiagnosing autism, and I feel like people also want to be special and they want to like be like, oh, I have this, I have that. To grow up or live with any one of these things can make life so tough. So let's just like, again, it's kind of similar to the the thing I was talking about with like intersex people and then this whole like transgender thing. It's like, let's not forget who are the people that actually really suffer. Again, personally speaking, I'm technically on this neurodivergence thing. I'm technically under this neurodivergence, which is a socio-political term, not even a medical term. With my CPTSD, puts me under this. Am I going to sit there and complain that I have the same struggles as someone who's ADHD, as someone who's ADHD, or as someone who's autistic diagnosed? Absolutely fucking not. End of the point. So, let's talk about the spiritual health. I think I already did earlier on, didn't I? I want to talk about spiritual health a bit, but I think I sort of touched on it when I was talking about that story. I also think the spiritual health is like really personal journey too. Like I found so much structure within Islam, but I see people online that find that same structure within Christianity. To me, don't understand how, but it's obviously working for them. They're practicing it and they're applying it in a way that works for them, right? Even though I don't believe what they believe, right? It's working for them. It's giving them good results in their life. Good. Helping them feel spiritually grounded, spiritually strong, spiritually focused. Fucking good. You know? I see women who don't believe in any of the Abrahamic religions, but they are more inclined with goddesses and they do their altars and things like that. And they seem to be happy and living their life and whatever the fuck else. You know? I think everyone finds spiritual hygiene in a different way. I think spiritual health is also a really messy journey too, because again, it's like your mental health. You can't see it, right? I mean, you start to learn to see stuff, but this is hard for me to talk about, guys. I guess I still internalize sometimes about this stuff, and sometimes I feel a bit insane. But I'll have like times where I'm more like spiritually open and more receptive to like, I guess, interdimensional activity than others. Most notably when I'm on my period. When I'm on my period, you know, I get a break from praying. And because of that, I kind of don't feel, it's not that I'm not, but I don't feel as close to Allah. And I also think it's like part of the whole point where I've like, it's kind of me connecting deeper with like myself and nature away from like the structure of this religion and like God in a different way. But that's another story for another day. But I'll have like my dreams ramp up in that time. I'll have my clear cognizance ramp up and things like that. And it's like a stark contrast from when I'm praying, you know. But they spiritually provide me very different things. And to be fair with you guys, I used to live my whole life, you know, every week, every day, whether I was on my menstrual cycle or not. I used to live and experience that whole time being in that really hyper energetic, hyper spiritual, very spiritually open state. And it was fucking so tough. And I struggled so much to manage it. So a lot of people say that like, oh, these religions, they like connect you from your divinity, blah, 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 blah. I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I can't speak for Christianity, but I'll speak for Islam. I feel so connected to my divinity and my role as a woman on this earth via practicing Islam. Now, I'm more Sufism inclined. So there's like Shia, Sunni, a few others. You know, there's always fucking denominations. And Sufis, I'm definitely more inclined to the Sufi path. That resonates with me the most. Particularly, they express differently. They use music. They chant. and they're more focused on like things of love, and they are actually concerned about mysticism and things like that, I definitely feel more like I resonate with that sort of denomination of Islam. But at the end of the day, we're all Muslim, right? We all believe in the one God and it's the same things. But I'm also a modern Muslim, and a modern Muslim is a new thing, right? Because we're in a modern era. So I may not look like your traditional, textbook Muslim, but that's okay, right? Because it's in your heart. And since I've been on this path, I've really felt that, like, I feel like to be a Muslim's in your heart, and if you get it, you get it. And if you know, you know. I think we might leave it at that. I think that was strong. I hope that was strong. To summarize, learn your symptoms. Learn your symptoms. It'll get to a point where you can start to realize this happens because of this, so therefore I need to manage this, or this happens because of this and it's not something that I can change or manage, it's just something I have to learn how to deal with. Then you can also reframe that into like, I am so grateful that this symptom occurs because of this, so that I can be aware of it. This is another reason why I'm more for the natural approach and less jabbing of stuff, less taking things, because then you actually can figure out like these triggers in your life, these things that are going on that maybe aren't favorable to you, or if they're things you have to deal with, you can learn tools around that. And then once you have that awareness, that's the main thing. It's this awareness. It's awareness on the symptoms, and it's awareness in what you will need to do to address that, which is why I'm saying strip everything back. Less is more, right? Take out all the fucking peptides, take out all the supplements, take out all the drugs, take out all this, all the distractions, everything. Get to nothing, right? And you'll probably be left with a bunch of emotion and even some withdrawals. Fuck, fine. Sit in it for the weeks, months that it takes, okay? Because it's worth it in the long run. It's worth the benefits you'll get on your health and the awareness you'll get on your health, so that you can then drive this for the rest of your life. And this is what we teach inside the MAFIA method. Hope you enjoyed this talk. As usual, all my links are in the description. And until next time, MAFIA, Seva.